Good evening, and welcome to A Faith That Does Justice at 10 Years, a conversation with our president, Tom Dwyer. Tonight, we're inviting you to enjoy a conversation with Tom, which will provide some insights into A Faith That Does Justice, which, as many of you know, is a multi-faith, nonprofit organization which was founded by Father Peter W. Giles in 2016. And this year, we're marking our 10th anniversary. I'm Rich Carlson, Director of Communications for A Faith That Does Justice, and I've been a volunteer since 2018. During that time, I've had the privilege of working with Father Peter and the volunteer leadership team in many ways. But one of the most fulfilling for me was meeting other volunteers and talking with some of the people whose lives are touched by A Faith That Does Justice programs. Some of you this evening will be familiar with A Faith That Does Justice and the programs being offered. Some of you might be serving as volunteers, and others who supported our programs financially. During the evening, we invite you to put any questions or comments you have in the Q&A or in the chat, or if you wish, raise your hand, and we will include as many of those as possible in our conversation as time allows. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our president, Tom Dwyer, who will provide an overview of his background and share the vision that he and the board of directors have for the future of A Faith That Does Justice. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you very much, Rich. It's great to be able to have this opportunity to have a conversation with our followers and others that have tuned in. And it's great to be able to share this platform with you, Rich, as well. I'm delighted to be here, and I feel very privileged to be the president and the executive director of A Faith That Does Justice. I'm still relatively new in the position, as perhaps most of you know. I've been in the position now a year and a half, but I'm still learning and still in awe of all the wonderful work that A Faith That Does Justice does. It's been wonderful to build on the legacy that Father Peter, our founder, a Jesuit priest, and a medical doctor, left for us all. I thought it might be helpful at the outset for me just to tell you a little bit about myself, since I presume many of you do not know who I am. So I'll just spend a moment with that, and then we'll get a little bit further into where A Faith That Does Justice is heading, and hopefully we'll hear from you with your comments and your questions. In terms of in terms of who I am, to start with that, so I'm a fellow who really started to be immersed in the social justice tradition of the Catholic faith way back in high school, when I went to a Jesuit high school in Detroit, Michigan, University of Detroit Jesuit High School. That was a pivotal moment for me in terms of learning really about this particular dimension of our faith, which has come to be a core belief of mine, a core conviction of mine in terms of how I've led my life. From Boston College, I went on, or from University of Detroit High School, I went on to Boston College, so I continued the Jesuits. I drank the Kool-Aid from the Jesuits, and I'm happy to have done that. So I was at Boston College for 4 years. And after graduation, I had this notion that I wanted to be a newspaper reporter and set the world at fire with exposés and being the crusading journalist, I guess. And so I tried that for a while, and I enjoyed that immensely. But eventually I gravitated towards government, and I got my master's in public administration, and began serving in government, local government, and spent a number of years as a town manager and as an assistant town manager, 16 years altogether. And from there, I went into a sort of an allied field. I was the CEO of an intergovernmental risk-sharing pool for municipalities and school districts that provided insurance and risk management services for municipalities and school districts in all forms, everything from property and liability and workers' comp to health and life and dental insurance. Along the way, I did a number of things as a volunteer in advocating for social justice, working with folks in need. I spent a number of years as the Voice of the Poor chair, a national position, a volunteer position like this one, as the National Voice of the Poor chair for the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. And in that capacity, I worked, my wife and I are 30-year plus members of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, working to provide assistance to people in need and advocating for social justice on their behalf. Turning to a faith that does justice, I was very fortunate to be asked to consider applying for the position when Father Peter unexpectedly died 2 years ago this month, in fact. And now that I'm here working in this capacity, I can tell you that it is a distinct pleasure to head the organization. The volunteers, and as I think I said already, and I just want to emphasize again, we're all volunteers. The quality and the caliber, the commitment, the compassion of the volunteers is really remarkable. I've never experienced anything like this with a volunteer organization. Father Peter attracted just some very high quality people. His vision was exceptional, broad, heartfelt, and it's a pleasure to continue to try to carry that vision out. The times are tough right now. We have a great deal of difficulty, obviously, in terms of advocating for those that are in need. We've got a federal administration that seems to relish in official cruelty. So that's a challenge, and it's discouraging to lots of folks. And it's, of course, very discouraging to those people that we serve through our programs. Just to give you quick sets of our programs, and then we'll see if we can get into some further conversations. We have three programs, three main programs. One is an English for Speakers of Other Language program, and we have we offer both remote and in-person classes for adult immigrants. That program is thriving right now. We have been offering that program for 8 or 9 years, and it is thriving right now. We're just completing one cycle and heading into another cycle in a few weeks. I must tell you that my wife, Mary, is now the director of that program, and not because she's my wife, but because she's truly doing an outstanding job. I want to commend her for that. And then we have a grab and go program that operates from 2 different church sites in the Boston urban core. Twice a week, a cadre of volunteers go out, prepare lunches, and deliver them, as well as have them picked up at the church, but also deliver them on the streets to the homeless and the hungry. They're very diligent and faithful in doing that. In fact, I accompanied them this past Saturday in the Mission Hill section of Boston. So that's another one of our programs. That's an expanding program, and desperate, and the need is quite evident. And then the last program is our social justice mindfulness program, our education and outreach program. This particular webinar is part of that kind of a program. It's part of our social justice education and outreach program. And in that capacity, we offer fireside chats. We make presentations at church groups and church basements, to networks, to college classes sometimes. Anyone that would like to learn more about social justice and believes that we need to work for social justice, we're ready, willing, and able to be there and offer thoughts and ideas, encouragement, and to provide opportunities for people to do that. So those are our programs. Rich, you know them well since you've been with the organization for much longer than I have. We are hoping that we can hear from you about what you see as needs and what you have about as far as concerns right now. But that's an overview of where we are.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. I really appreciate that. And I will say that part of my role in communications has been helping to prepare some of the videos that have been developed over the years, and which enabled us to talk to a lot of volunteers. We certainly, in one of our videos, Father Peter talked about his vision for a faith that is justice and putting your faith into action. But to get out there and actually talk to the volunteers, and then especially the people who are being served, whether it's for the grab and go program or the students that are going through the ESOL program, and really hearing firsthand how their lives have been touched by a faith that is justice. I mean, personally, that's one of the things that I found most fulfilling. But in the course of the last 8 years or so, since the organization was founded back in 2016, um, clearly the whole environment in this country, be it locally or nationally, has changed. And just wondering, how do you feel about the next chapter for a faith that is justice, and how the needs might be changing? I mean, so certainly the need for grab and go and ESOL is there, but how do you see the program evolving, either in terms of the what you're doing and what the development team is doing to expand our people's awareness through the weekly newsletter, and other communication needs. But what are you hearing from the community, and what do you see happening in the next chapter for the organization?
Well, I think
It's a lot of questions, I know.
but the good questions, Rich, and I think I believe it's a very, very difficult time in our country. I suspect that most everyone that's on this call would probably agree with that. We're in a deeply polarized environment. Uh, we've got policies that are being promoted at official levels that really seem not even designed to be neutral. They just seem to be designed to be cruel and mean for no good purpose. Uh, I always sometimes um, rebel or take a step back when people say that these are the most difficult times in our country. I mean, there's been very, very difficult times in our country if you look back over the history. But I'm not sure that we've ever seen cruelty so pronounced officially, so promoted. And of course, no one says that they're trying to be cruel. They masquerade that with different language. But we could all see. Father Peter, in one of my favorite sayings, said, when you see injustice, when you see this kind of behavior, it it's revolting. It causes your stomach to be upset. It causes it's a gut feeling, and I think many of us feel exactly that way. It's easy to get discouraged. In terms of the people that we serve, the programs are being cut back, so they're struggling more. In terms of even our students in our English for Speakers of Other Language program, our last in-person program, which usually would have anywhere from 8 to 15 students in a program, we actually had to cancel, not the current one, but the one prior to that, because only one student of about 16 showed up. And among other reasons, students were afraid. They were afraid to be on the streets. They were afraid of exposing themselves to ICE. And I mean, and these are people that we all know are hardworking people, uh, trying to survive, trying to get by, trying to provide for their families. The stories are evident. The papers are full of those stories. These are our neighbors. These are our friends. These are the people that are tending to our elderly and our folks in the hospitals. Uh, and yet, this is the environment that we're in, and it's a very difficult and a challenging one. Father Peter would be on his megaphone, and we're trying to carry that that tradition forward. We try to do it responsibly. We try to do it without inflammatory language. Um, we try to do it from a faith-based perspective because we think that is absolutely fundamental to being able to persevere
Hmm.
rather, in these times of challenge. When hope seems bleak, it's faith that gets us through, that carries us forward.
Right.
So it's a difficult time, but we are trying on all levels to continue to do that. We do need help. And frankly, Rich, as you know, we need financial help too. We're in the middle of our Power of 10 campaign, which maybe we can talk about a little bit later here.
Yeah, certainly. And we're getting some conversation from Margaret. You know, she agreed about the cruelty to the top level of our government, but the frustration is we don't know what to do about it. And I think that I would suspect that maybe a lot of people on this webinar this evening are going to feel that way as well. And so I know that we want to reach out. I know you have to be careful. You know, you don't want to appear to be a political organization per se, but you know, it's a different environment from when Father Peter, you know, first started the organization. However, but that's how we need to be responsive. I mean, I think you've been very aware of the need to expand our presence, you know, geographically. Um, and in terms of getting volunteers involved, Tom, what do you, because I agree with you, being an all volunteer organization, there was a real need to get more volunteers for our various programs. Um, you know, what do you find as being an effective way to actually attract people of all ages to a faith that does justice?
Well, we we reach out. And we reach out in every way that we can think of reaching out. We post on various volunteer recruitment sites, and we get a remarkably good response from that. One of the sites that we use is Idealist, but we also do direct outreach. So in the Boston, in the greater Boston area in Massachusetts, we are reaching out on a regular basis with emails and other forms of communication to all of the parishes and churches. And by that, I'm not just, we are an interfaith organization. And that is one of our challenges, frankly, is to try to increase our interfaith diversity on all levels of the organization. But we reach out to mosques, we reach out to temples, we reach out to churches, we reach out to all the different denominations. And we are actually quite successful in getting volunteers to come forward. And then we take the opportunity for other avenues. If anyone wants to invite us to make a presentation, one of
Hmm.
us will be there. And the best thing to do is that in-person contact. The Zoom is great, but we want to be in person and talking to people in person. And word of mouth is also very important. The number of people that come forward and say, my friend told me that she was volunteering as a teacher at our English for Speakers of Other Language program and said that this is really good work and fulfilling work. And it makes one of our teachers continually tells me how pleased she is. This is a teacher who was a doctor at Mass General for 50 years, retired, very frustrated by what's happening in this community. And she tells me repeatedly, she's our steady in-person teacher. She tells me repeatedly how this has given her a way to channel her frustration and her energy, and has kind of revitalized her life because she's giving back. She's channeling that frustration. She's channeling that energy in a positive direction. I feel personally the same way. This is this is this is this is a good thing to do, not only for myself, but for building that common good, the kind of thing that Catholic social teaching talks about.
Yeah. And I know you've been in touch with a number of other organizations as you say, Tom, of all faiths, and in ways that we can spread the word and help to build on one another, whether it's the weekly word or the newsletters that we put out. There seem to be a lot of opportunities, even with the social chats. That clearly has become a pretty effective way of communicating with people and having them share their opinions and things like that. The I know in making the videos, we found those to be very effective. I know we monitor, what is attracting people, or what pages of the website they might be staying on, or if we're doing social media posts, what seems to really attract attention. But I think it can be helpful if someone out is in the conversation this evening and they are serving as a volunteer, if they would be willing to either send in to us either a written testimonial about what they've been getting by being a volunteer in the organization, or if they want to do a short video or something like that, and just get in touch with us. We're always looking for that kind of support and involvement. I mean, I look at the thing about engaging people, educating them, and encouraging them to support us, be it financially or as volunteers or both. And because, I mean, obviously there are a lot of other organizations that offer some of the same programs, but I think what do you find is that makes a Faith to Justice really truly unique? Um,
Well,
and because,
one thing that clearly that makes us unique is our all volunteer nature. I mean, you're a
yeah.
volunteer, I'm a volunteer, everyone's a volunteer.
Hmm.
Uh, and obviously there are other all volunteer organizations, but the kinds of programs that we run, for instance, the English for Speakers of Other Language programs, we do partner with that program. We do partner with Jewish Vocational Services in that program. They provide some testing services for us, some classroom supervision for us from time to time, classroom observation for us from time to time, and they provide some training to us. They run a wide range of vocational programs. The folks there say it's really quite remarkable what we are able to do with our volunteer corps in teaching English for speakers of other languages, teaching English to speakers of other languages. Um, so I think that's really one distinct difference. The scope and the quality of the services that we can provide to people. Other distinctive features, Rich, are things like we've got people from different faiths involved. Frankly, we need more people from the Islamic tradition involved. We're working to try to do that. Just recently, we were able to bring an excellent, outstanding rabbi onto our board of directors, James Green. James is the head of Jewish Family Services in Western Massachusetts, and he's been a writer for us. He's proving to be an outstanding board member, and he's introducing us to a whole new dimension as we try to build the interfaith connection. Uh, we need more from the Muslim tradition and from other traditions. We do have a Baptist minister on our board too. So we want to build that up, and we want to build that as well in our volunteer base and in our leadership team base. Um, but the ability to bring people together from different faith traditions and from different areas of the country is, I think, pretty remarkable for what we're doing.
Yeah, and Rob Brennan raised about an issue they were having down in Barnstable with the Zoning Board of Appeals revoking a building permit that had been issued to the Catholic Church charities and things like that. So again, it just shows you that the types of resistance that we might be getting in terms of helping the people that we serve is widespread. I don't know. I know you've done some outreach, Tom, beyond just the immediate Boston area, and clearly, I think you correct me if I'm wrong, but you were invited to participate in a long distance fireside chat, if you will, with was there a state out in the Midwest or something like that, who invited you to?
Right? We utilize all the different methods, Rich. There's I've done Zoom presentations to different groups across the country, Michigan being one of them. Uh, Traveled recently to Long Island to an Episcopal church and made a presentation there. Um, got a up to, at the other end of the spectrum. I've got coming up in the middle of September a presentation to a college class here in the Boston area, and it's a college class that also wants to get involved in service activities. So every opportunity that we can find, we try to capitalize on. And the wonderful thing is we've got a great core of donors that support our work, um, and uh, and that gives us the ability to do that. But as I said, we still have the need. Grant funding is not available like it used to be. We are heavily dependent on individual donors. Almost our entire budget comes from the generosity of donors to us. So we are dependent on that. We need that. We are very grateful for those that have supported us for so many years.
Yeah, and what about I'm going to say younger people? I know that you've had some contact with Boston College and some of the other local universities, but are you finding that is there a willingness certainly for younger audiences to serve as volunteers or to become part of the organization and learn more about what we're doing and things like that?
There is, Rich, and we see it with a number of our younger volunteers that we have. By the same token, I'm a child of the 60s and 70s, and I'm not sure that I see as widespread activism um, and and resistance as I did back in those days. Now, memory could be could be faulty here, or I could have be looking through a particular set of lenses at it. But I'm not sure that there's as much activism for college kids and young adults as there was back in those days. Uh, However, there are certainly notable pockets of exception to that, and those people give me great hope about what's happening. And those young people are, they're bright, they're determined, they're compassionate, they've got many talents, and frankly, we are looking. I mean, one of the things that I am doing, Rich, as you know, in concert with the board, is we are looking for younger leadership. We want younger leadership.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily the best for uh, it's not necessarily the best to have, an old white man leading this organization in these times. Um, and uh, so we need those people to step forward. The problem is we are all volunteers. So, for a young person to step forward, unless they have an independent means of support, or even for a younger priest or a clergy member to step forward, that's difficult. And we recognize that, and we're trying to figure strategies out to deal with that. I see that someone asked how many volunteers are involved. We have
Correct. Yeah.
we have well over I guess it was James that asked that. We have well over 50 volunteers involved at any one time, and probably over the course of a year, we may get up to 75 or 80 volunteers. So, as an example, people, will work for a while or volunteer for a while at a grab and go program, or they're every other week attendees. The same thing with our ESOL teachers. They will teach one class for one cycle, take a cycle off, come back at a later cycle. But there's a great number of volunteers that are involved, and they're from all over the country because some of the work we do with the
Right.
ESOL is remote. We have teachers from Canada. We have some teachers from
Good point.
Oregon and New
Yeah.
Jersey.
Yeah. The yeah, the other thing, so as you say, but how many, like between the weekly word and the newsletter, I mean, we have quite a following in terms of it's in the thousands, I know, in terms of like
Right.
we send that out. So it's and because a part of your efforts to Tom to and the board to expand this nationally, certainly. And in fact, I think didn't you even have might have been about a year ago, weren't you on a radio program out in London? Something like that.
I
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah.
Actually, I was on a radio program, two radio programs of the I'm forgetting exactly what it was called, but it was a Muslim radio
Correct.
broadcast
Yep.
there, and required me to get up in the middle of the night one time to do that. But it was a great opportunity
Sure.
to obviously uh, contribute to social justice and to build that connection to other faiths. Uh, Many people have this impression that the Islamic faith is a faith of violence. It's anything but that. Um, and we need to be able to dispel those kinds of notions. And the best way to dispel that is by person to person interactions where we get to know our neighbors and break down these stereotypes that we have. And so, again, we take the opportunities that are presented to us. We look for new opportunities, and we want to ask all of those who are listening to help us with that. We
Yes.
can't do this by ourselves. We need help. We all need to stand in solidarity, especially at this time. Do we need to stand in solidarity? You know, people are being picked off, uh, I guess, both literally and figuratively, by the campaigns that are going on at, at the federal level. And it's important for us to stand to be a voice of resistance. Um, and we've got, especially coming up, a big opportunity right now with the midterm elections coming up
Good,
to,
good
to
point.
to talk about that.
Very good point. Tom, just kind of remind people on the call, what's the best way to really connect with our organization if whether they want to be a volunteer or certainly to learn more if they want to be added to our a weekly newsletter list or the weekly word, or just even become involved, as I said, either as a volunteer or financial contributor, whatever it might be. But what's the best way to really get to learn more about the organization, to connect with us?
So the best way is really to go to our website. Um, and
Okay,
and the easiest way to get to their website is simply to type the words "of faith that does justice" into your browser of choice, and you'll be taken then to the site. And among other things, there are ways that you can donate there. Um, you can sign up to be a volunteer. Our volunteer positions are open. They're not strictly for positions such as grab and go outreach workers or ESOL teachers, but we have positions available for uh, you know, community partnership coordinators and student relationship managers. And
yes,
we
good
have
point.
some positions available for those that might have some accounting skills to help us with financial transactions and recording. So we have a wide range of programs. We need right now a director of volunteer engagement, for instance. So there's plenty of opportunities there to participate, and that's the easiest way to do that.
Yeah. And also, if they I was just reminded that if they go to the website, faithjustice.org/contact, if they go right to that page, then they can put in their information and we can keep in touch and it's a wonderful way. One thing I've noticed, Tom, I think especially in the last year and a half, is the weekly newsletter. It really covers a lot of different bases. I mean, there's a very nice message in there, from you, be it that or the weekly word, but then also what else is happening within our environment, if you will. If people want to learn more about what other organizations are doing, I know St. Cecilia's is, we'll put their a reminder to people if they wanted to connect and whether you go to that parish's website or whatever, or for that matter, for any religious organization, because we are multi-faith, that's another way to make sure that we maintain and expand upon the awareness that people are have about what we're doing as an organization. Um, but there's a lot of good involvement by the people attending. I really appreciate their interest. They're wondering, like you mentioned earlier about the political environment, and as a multi-faith organization, what kind of reaction are we getting or resistance we're getting maybe from the overall environment within our administration, be it locally or nationally. I think in some cases it's been quite supportive of what we're doing. Um,
Right.
but that's not always the case, as you know. And so that to me, and I think, someone raised a question earlier, and that is a source of frustration they might have about, what can be done, what can we do, so that we encourage those that whether they're in elected positions or maybe even other volunteer organizations, coming together and presenting a point of view that we think is going to be much more in keeping with what Father, Peter, suggested years ago when he founded the organization, just to try and remember what's important in life. And, putting the faith into action is one thing, but then just caring for one another. I think that's
Right. Well, Father Peter believed, as do I, and I think I know you do, Rich, and all the members of the leadership team. I mean, Father Peter believed that um, true faith is not confined and cannot be confined to just the insides of churches and mosques and temples. He believed that it had to be out, interacting with people on the streets, building the common good. And it takes work to build the common good. Systems do not change on their own initiative. People have to advocate for change. And we talked earlier about the importance of youth. If you do look through history, you'll see that so many
mm,
major historic changes, social justice changes, started with our young people. So it's very important to us, to me personally, to get young people involved in social justice, to get them involved with a faith that does justice, but
mhm,
just to have them involved in that capacity in a general way, is to have them involved. We've got coming up, and we talked about politics before. Of course, we are an interfaith, we're a tax exempt organization. But what we are precluded from doing is endorsing candidates. We are not precluded, however, uh, and we do things to promote policies that help those that are in need and that correct those where there are systems that oppress people. And oppress is the right word. Systems
great.
do oppress people. And it's not even always governmental systems, it can be institutional systems as well. It can be corporate systems. Um, we always, however, speak with dignity and respect. We don't degrade those who disagree with us. In fact, we want to enter into dialogue with those people. We have an opportunity coming up in the midterm elections for all people of good faith to be out. Faith has really been lately perverted, in my estimation. I mean, when people mock empathy, uh, that message is just an awful message. I understand that sometimes tough love is important, but when empathy is marked, when people say, "Oh, you're being manipulated," your empathy is being manipulated. I just don't understand that. I simply don't understand that. If you are a human being, if you care, if you have a soul, these situations touch you deeply, and you want to remedy them. That's a whole different kind of thing. The prosperity gospel, to use another example, that if you have wealth, that means that God favors you. No, God says take care of the poor. And that's true in all the faith traditions. That's not just a Catholic or a Christian tradition. That's true in the Islamic and in the Jewish tradition. Care for the poor, care for the stranger, the alien. Um, these are fundamental principles that are being subverted. I wrote a column a while ago in our weekly word that talked about the doublespeak, the George Orwell 1984 doublespeak
Mm,
that is occurring. I think that is the most harmful part of what's happening is the mind manipulation. You know, truth is now in question. I understand there are gray areas, but there is truth. There are facts, and now it's doublespeak, and and we are coming to believe that we you know that they are playing with our minds, and that is very, very dangerous.
Yeah, no, those are all great points, Tom. And I think one of the interesting things now in terms of the way we communicate nowadays, I won't even get into AI yet and things like that, but just the social media side of it. And I hear the nightly news comes on, there's I wish there was a channel that had nothing but not nothing but the good news. I mean, so much is being done in this world that is not being promoted. I mean, whether it's and I'm not certainly don't. It's unfortunate when people either have violence in their home or they have mental anguish or things like that. But the way we communicate nowadays, in terms of, there was an article in the Boston Globe recently about how people are using their cell phones and they're so engrossed within themselves that they're almost. I'm overemphasizing this, but there's almost like a little bubble where you're losing touch with the rest of the world, and that's not true of all ages or whatever, it's so easy now to communicate falsely or directly with what's going on in the world that I think that there would be an opportunity to put social media and all of this into a positive perspective and not dwell so much on all the negative things that happen in the world. Um, but anyway, that to me is something that I think, and especially I'm going to say with younger people, because I have children and grandchildren that are in anywhere from their teens to mid 40s, and I see how much they're relying upon or using their cell phones and the way they communicate with one another, that they're not always, I guess, as concerned about the outside world and touching one another. And I think there was there was an article that I read recently where one of the most frustrating things people have right now, in fact, I think it was David Brooks who raised this point in one of his speeches, that people are becoming socially isolated. And they're really, we need to be more cognizant of that. And then what can we do? And I think, again, what Faith that is Justice is really trying to do is putting one's faith into action, as you just indicated, by being sensitive to what people's needs are. Um,
Well, we, in line with what you're saying, and also, Rich, with a comment that I just see was posted. The comment reads, we need to have faith that does justice, get out the vote. We need to promote listening groups. We need to hear from our various volunteer groups throughout the country to hear of examples of successful programs. We need to
yep,
develop Catholic social teaching programs targeting our middle school, high school, as well as our college age young people. Amen to all of those kinds of sentiments. Thank you very much for sharing that. I think it was Kate that shared that. Would love to
yeah, it
hear
was.
from more of you about what we need. I want to mention we anticipate in either later in September or in October, I anticipate that we'll be hosting a, a fireside chat, as we have done in the past, on the upcoming elections and on the importance of getting out to vote. Not directing people to vote one way or another, but asking
Correct.
people to examine the issues in the light of faith and conscience.
Hmm.
I'm a big proponent of the Catholic social teaching, the concept of reading the signs of the time and seeing, judging, and acting. Um, these are all long standing principles of Catholic social teaching, all
Hmm.
basically emanating from Vatican II. And I believe firmly in the value of those kinds of approaches to looking at life, reading the signs of the times, and seeing, judging, and acting. And when I talk about judging, people say, well, we're not supposed to be judgmental. we are not supposed to be judgmental, in my view, in the sense of judging a person. But I certainly think we are called uh, in all our faith traditions to judge what is happening and to see how it measures up against our faith and traditions. And when it doesn't match up, when it doesn't mimic or align with welcoming the strangers and feeding the poor and caring for the least among us and tending to those that are in prison, when it doesn't align with that, we need to act. We can't be silent. And when people try to suppress us from
Yep.
acting, we need to resist that. We don't start out from a position of resistance, but when that happens, we must resist. We can't keep quiet.
All good points, Tom. And one thing I was wondering about with you and the leadership team and the board of directors, what do you see as the next chapter of a faith that is justice? So what does that look like to you in terms of um, where we're headed? Let's say I'm not going to say over the next 10 years because we're not going to go quite that far out, but what do you see uh, as the next chapter looking like for a faith that is justice?
Well, what I see and what I hope we can work to is first of all, a leadership team, someone in my position,
Hmm.
okay, that will carry on the tradition that Father Peter set. Um, Hopefully that I'm able to continue with the support of so many others, not by myself for sure, but with the support of so many others, but that will be much younger and able to continue to do that work. And that we'll be able to build that interfaith community truly at a faith that does justice. That we will have on the board of directors a truly diverse set
Yeah.
of people from the different faith traditions, that we will have that on our leadership team as well. We already have that in many ways with our volunteers. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things. When I was out walking with the
Right.
Grab and Go
Yep.
group this Saturday, we had people from all different places and all different ages going out to talk with the people on the street. And it was just, I mean, it was so inspiring.
Right.
The feeling was so good when I mean, we'd go up to people and talk to them and they would respond. And our volunteers listened to them. I mean, it's not just, here's a lunch bag and we're on. How are you doing? We had some clothes. So, we said, are you interested? You need some clothes. We would take the time, show them the clothes to see if they fit. And the people were so warm and we want what we need to do is we need to build on that too. We need to build from sort of that encounter to helping them move to the next level. And that's something we are struggling with right now. We need other people to help with that. Our English for speakers of other language programs to use that is, I mean, that's really giving people a tremendous foundation for
Hmm.
them to move forward. I mean, that's really a critical skill on which they can build. That is really a transformational activity, not a transactional one, but a transformational one. We're changing people, we're giving them new opportunities. What better can we do than that? I mean, that is just so critical.
Yeah, and the point you raised earlier, Tom, and I've experienced this personally myself, is on the grab and go. It's wonderful that we're preparing these lunches and we actually take them out, whether it's in a wagon and we go around because we know where these people are because some of them are just repeats, week after week. It's not so much the food, although it's very helpful. It's the fact that someone's paying attention to them, and they're really listening to them, and just and I've heard this and seen this that because they care, they care about their current living environment, whether they're homeless or whether they're day to day or week to week from a living environment standpoint, and that the volunteers have said not only that was one of the most meaningful things to them is because people they readily acknowledge that yes, thank you for the food, but thank you for caring. And and speaking of that, the one thing I want to mention before we we start to close up the conversation, and that is, I hope that people use the chat or the website to give us ideas about the topics that they would like us to cover in the future, whether it's for a fireside chat, whether it's maybe they've heard about a program that would work very well to supplement what we're currently doing. But if they can use the chat or they can use, before they leave this evening's meeting, or if they can go to the website and give us ideas, we're always looking for that, and certainly wide open to hearing what other people have in mind that they think are legitimate topics that we could be discussing or programs that we could be starting and things like that. I think
We
that could be very, very helpful.
We certainly, you're so right, Rich. We certainly need that. We want to engage with people. We only have about 10 minutes left here, not even that now,
Right.
9 minutes left. But
Yeah.
if there are questions and comments from people, we want those ideas. We need those. We want to engage with people. And this is all about engagement and personal encounter and journeying together. We have to be together. We need to be together. I'm suspecting that a number of you were at the No Kings rallies that we've had in the past. The sense of solidarity and common purpose that was present at those kinds of
Yeah.
rallies was
Yep.
was really strong. I know you were at those as well, Richard. I'm sure you felt this the same way. I mean, that's one of the things that gives me hope. There's a lot of things that give me hope right now. And I wrote a column about that recently. Yes, this is a bleak time, but there's lots of things that are giving me hope. People are talking about solidarity. People are suddenly talking about, these immigrants are really good for our community.
Oh,
We didn't buy
absolutely.
into these kinds of deportations. This is not what people are coming together. People are saying, this is not what our country is. This is not who we are as a people. They're stepping forward, they're getting involved. So there are many, many signs of hope among this. The pendulum, unfortunately, in our life and many things, swings one way and swings the other way, and then it comes back to the middle. Um, but I think there are plenty of signs of hope that we can all latch on to and feed and build and nurture. And before we start to close, I do want to, I've
Yeah.
refrained so far from making an outright pitch for money, but I do want to make an outright pitch for
Sure.
money
Yep.
before
Yep.
before we
Good.
close.
By all
Okay.
means.
And I want to just talk a second about that. We are in the middle of our Power of 10 campaign.
Hmm.
Um, and we've chosen the Power of 10 theme because we've been here for 10 years. We hope and plan to be here for the next 10. We want to build that foundation for the next 10. So for the last 5 weeks, this is I think, our sixth week, we are in this Power of
Correct.
10 campaign. We're
Yep.
looking for three specific kinds of financial support if you're able to do that. And one is that we are hoping to increase the number of folks that support us on a monthly basis. And we've chosen to use the concept of some denomination of 10. So $10 a week, $30 a week, $50 a week, $100 a week. The sustainers that do that are really helpful in terms of our financial planning and our stability. The other thing, of course, is that we would be grateful for any support that you would give us in terms of lump sum donations. And again, Power of 10, we've set as our own internal goal, trying to find 10 $1,000 donors to help support our work. And then lastly is sort of the grand one. We are hoping that at least one person might step forward and be willing to support the work with a $10,000 donation or some larger donation there.
Hmm.
It's always difficult to make a plea for funds, and we know times are tight. Uh, but if you can even do a small monthly donation, that would help. And if you've got the ability to do something more significant, that would be appreciated. Remember, in our case, almost every single dollar, almost every single penny
Exactly.
goes to service programs because we are all volunteer. So we hope you'll prayerfully consider that. I see someone asked a question about our budget. That's a very reasonable question to ask, and I'm glad that question came forward. We're small. We're $250,000 is basically our annual budget. Uh, and as I said, and as you can understand with volunteers, most all of that goes directly to service work. So that's our base. We need to try to increase that base. It is tough to raise money these days. So whatever help any of you that are on the call here can give us, we would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, and from a communication standpoint too, Tom, and we have the ability now to do that, but we want to track, how our monies are being spent, or whether they're in social media, whether it's in videos, whatever the case might be, and make sure that we're constantly refining things so that we don't do a lot of direct mail or anything like that because that's not a cost-effective way to communicate. So we try and use the social media, the internet as much as possible. And so again, being accountable, I think, is very, very important, and that's something I'm glad that you raised that too about the different levels of support that we on the power of 10. Um, but we're at 3 minutes to go here, and again, I just appreciate everyone's participation this evening because that kind of interaction is really what makes it worthwhile from our standpoint. Because, um, but again, if there are ways in which that you would find, whether it's, as I said, the fireside chats or other, maybe you're involved in an organization where it would be helpful if we have an exhibit that we came out and we solicit people. I know you've done that, Tom, recently. I think you mentioned that earlier. If
Mhm.
there's a way, we have a display, we have some nice collateral material, very cost effectively printed, I might add, that we can hand out. We use QR codes um, as much as possible to get people going directly to our website. So again, we welcome your ideas, your solicitation. After the conversation ends this evening, certainly go to the website, faith-justice.org, and there'll be many opportunities on there to learn some of the many things that we're doing, hear from our volunteers, the testimonials. And again, we appreciate everyone's involvement this evening, and hopefully you found it a worthwhile time together. So I will
And
let you.
Rich,
Yes,
if I could, I'd like to close here with
absolutely.
a little prayer, I guess.
Okay.
This is something that I stumbled upon a few months ago, and I think it's really appropriate for what we are all engaged in. And by all, I mean all the folks that are on this call, the others that may be joining us later when the recording is posted. I know from just looking at the roster of people that are on the call that there are other people that are doing just tremendous work that I have great respect for. This is called a non-traditional blessing. Uh, and it goes as follows. May God bless you with discomfort at easy answers, half truths, and superficial relationships, so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger and injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and to turn their pain to joy. And may God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world so that you can do what others claim cannot be done to bring justice and kindness to all of God's children and to the poor and the vulnerable in particular. Amen. And I want to thank you all for being with us this evening. Rich, thank you very much for hosting this with us. We hope that many of you will spread the good word about the work that we're doing. Support us with your prayers, support us with your money if you can, and volunteer with us if you have the time and the ability. Thank you very much. Peace and blessings to all of you. Good night.
Thank you very much, Tom. Amen.